So today is going to be use number 103 for my Nacet. 50 dots on that side, 52 on that side. 103 uses, and we're going back to the best razor so far that has performed with this Nacet in its oldest of uses. And there's my old Nacet. This is a Sheraton, 1937, maybe early 38. We're going to use a kind of one of the ubiquitous legendary soaps, Martin de Candre. The Vetiver is the scent here. I tried their Fougere. It was a little too lightly scented for me, and this is the first time I'm trying this one. Now, this is an expensive soap, but it comes in this hoss of a glass jar, and although this actually doesn't feel like glass, this feels more like polycarbonate or something like that. But anyway, comes in this monster container here, 200 grams, so it's a larger portion than your average soap tub, but a little goes a long way with this soap. And so a lot of times people are reporting that instead of 3 months for the amount of shaves that you get, this is looking more like a year. And so it can actually be a pretty budgetary soap. But shipping to get it over here to the US is expensive and all that stuff. But even so, it can actually be a reasonably priced soap. My sample I've had before performed well. And so I'm happy to try this. I've had my Declaration B5 brush here soaking, and you might notice those little bands right there. That's my daughter's little hair doodad, and we're gonna constrain this loft a little bit to make it behave like a deeper set knot. And I'm hoping that this will be a little, it was set pretty deep in its original handle. I'm hoping this is going to be just a tad bigger, a tad taller, so I get a little bit less of that firm backbone. Now I've shaken most of the water out of it. As you can see, this is pretty much unused, and it's really flush with the top of the container, so this is going to be messy. A little goes a long way with this one, so let's just try the usual 20-second load, and 10 seconds is right there. Let's just see what happens with a 20-second load. A little bit going into the sink, and there's 20 seconds. Okay, so I can collect up most of this right here, and I'm going to rinse the canister. One way to avoid that mess is to scoop. I advise you to take about a 1/4 teaspoon scoop. Get a thin one, metal, really thin. That way it's easy to push it through any soap cream that you have, or crope. I meant to say soap or crope, and then use, probably with this soap, a little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon is what you're going to need. But with a lot of the American artisan cropes, a 1/4 teaspoon may be about right. And then you don't have the overflowing suds or anything like that. But it feels a little bit less like shaving to me when I'm scooping and then pressing that sample into the bottom of a bowl. But here we go. And so that is what we're looking like right now. So let's just start mixing. I like Vetiver. I've discovered that I like the Vetiver scent, so I'm really happy to. I got this off a really, really good deal from a fellow shaver, and so otherwise I probably would not have it. Somebody posted a thread a while back of soaps or maybe shaving items that really didn't live up to the hype. And this was pretty common on that list for a good many users. You know, because of the expense. And so I haven't had this on my radar, but then when this particular scent, because they've got kind of lady scents like rose and other such, and when Vetiver came along, I thought, oh, I bet I would like that one. Now see, even with just the water that was in this brush, we've already got this much early lather. It's too dry right now, but shoot, 15 seconds, maybe 10 seconds is all I need to load with this guy. Maybe even 8. Or, I mean, 5. Is 5 too little? So it really can be a good value. I think at one point people were saying if you're going to order some from the manufacturer, some new tubs, order 2 at one time. Sure, it'll be expensive, but it's 2 years of soaps. That's, you know, everyday shave. That's 2 years of stuff, and so it's not all that expensive when you look at how many shaves it's going to give you. Yeah, I am picking up a nice Vetiver scent from this guy. Very cool. I like that. They didn't adulterate the Vetiver with, you know, lady florals or powder or things like that that sometimes the European makers tend to do. Curious how this backbone is going to act with this choked down brush. Now, you saw the wad of soap a minute ago. See, it's a lot more smoothed out, a bit of a sheen on it. Looks like it still needs some more water, but now that I've got 2 teaspoons in it, I don't want to overwater. So what I'm going to do, reach in and grab some, squeeze, rub my fingertips together. I do not feel that I have ridges on my fingerprints. That is pretty impressive. Very nice. And so I will keep on adding a little bit more water. Volume of soap will increase. Just starting to feel the ridges there, so why don't we go ahead and stop just for grins. Feels really nice and creamy, luxurious. Let's go with that. Throw a little water on my face. All right. Can definitely feel the difference in the backbone from when I don't have it choked up on this. Inside this handle, it's just not set as deep. And so it's got a lot of splay, and And I like that, but here's the thing. As you can see, I don't need to put shaving lather on my chin and my mustache area, and so I don't do that cross the face thing that the guys do who can use those big brushes. I think this is working pretty well. I might have to get some O-rings or something like that that'll last a little bit longer than my kids. It's shoving my cheeks around just a little bit. This is thick. So take a look at my neck here. Okay, we've got the furrows that the brush makes. An animal hair brush, boar or badger, will usually make lines when I do that final swipe. But you see there's a little bit of blotchiness, not just the lines. And so that is a trait that you can look for on your soap. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's too dry. For me, it often does. For you, it might mean that's the way you like it. But I'm just saying it's an attribute of the soap that you can track and watch to be able to know if you've added enough water, that kind of thing. So this is, I'm going to go ahead and add some more water to the top of my brush here. I hate it when you add water into the brush and then it comes out the bottom here and then just drips down. That's kind of why I don't face lather, is all that water adding to the brush. I don't like it. Tons of soap. The scent strength, just standing here, it's very light, 1 or a 2 out of 10. It does bump up to maybe a 2 or a 3, maybe even a 4 while I'm agitating it here and moving the air around with my brush. All right, I'm happy with that. Let's do it. All right, now yesterday's shave was a little bit rough. It was still a 1-day growth, just like today, but it was with a different razor. I thought that razor the other razor was open comb as well. I thought that maybe it could handle it because it was a little bit aggressive, but it gave me, it tugged. Uncomfortably so, but nothing a man can't handle, and nothing that stayed around with me. And this guy's much better. So it was not the blade, it was just the geometry of that particular razor is just not suited to where this blade right here is, as it is aging. Just a tiny amount of tugging. With this razor right here, very acceptable. I think it still allows the shave to be called comfortable. Kind of shave a little bit on the carefree side on the first pass because we're just knocking down the hair. We're not being serious. I mean, if you want to try to really optimize things and do a 2-pass shave instead of a 3 or 3.5 like I do, then maybe you want to focus on some good technique, maybe some more buffing, things like that. So it's about 30 degrees, 35 degrees outside tonight. And so I am going to start the hot water coming up for my rinse, and then eventually when it finally gets up here, Then maybe that'll make my last pass kind of a lukewarm rinse. And then I'll have warm water to be able to clean and rinse out my brush. In the winter, I have started to use warmer water because otherwise it takes a long time to really rinse your brush out really well. So the lather that I just rinsed away was tremendous. Slick, slick, slick. And so to me, I like the scent. I like this Vetiver scent. Got a nice thick lather. It's protecting my skin. It's giving my razor excellent glide. Feels wonderful as I'm rinsing it away. It's banging on all cylinders, especially when you consider how the fact that it's expensive, but not really once you cost it out over its lifespan. Then to me, I don't think I would put it on a list of products that were overhyped. Now on the second pass, I will start to do some extra buffing and a little bit more care. Not in certain areas though, not really on my cheeks, because they just kind of always get done well no matter what I do. This side over here is the same, kind of the same way. But once I get on my Adam's apple and around on this side of my Adam's apple, I'm going to try to do a little bit more buffing, a little stretching. You don't want to stretch a lot. You can, I think the deal is if you overstretch and you end up cutting your hair under the surface of the skin, then that can cause problems as the hairs regrow. They could become ingrown hairs. There may be other concerns for people who stretch a little too much, but I don't know what they are. One nice thing about rinsing the razor with cold water like I do, I don't do the basin full of water. I don't fill my sink up. I hate that soap scum that accumulates on the side of your sink as you're draining it out. I hate that. And one time I actually did a measurement where I clogged up my sink and I just used the faucet water to rinse my razor and then to do all the work that I needed to do. And then at the end of the shave, I looked at my sink and it still wasn't full. And so I'm not wasting water from my faucet method either. Some people might think that, you're saving water by filling up your basin. Well, I guess it depends on the size of your basin and how much you fill it up. But for me, didn't want to bother doing that. So I just turn on the faucet. It's a little bit of a hassle. Turn on the faucet every time you need to do a little bit of a rinse. But I've gotten used to it. I don't even think about it anymore. All right. And you know what we're going to do now? I'm not even going to bother rinsing this off. You don't have to. Some people don't. Some people who've shaved their whole lives, and if you were to talk to them and say that you rinse between passes, they'd be like, why on earth would you do that? It's just how they did it, Wonder what kind of science might be behind that. Now here's one thing. If you're counting on a little extra moisture being on your face, like right now, this mixture is a little bit on the rich side. And so I'm actually counting on that moisture to be on my face, and so this is a little dry. So let us change that with a few drops. Holy cow, do I have tons of soap available, and the soap feels great on my face. Vetiver is nice. That's better. Alright, so this is the third pass now. Yeah, I could see why people might want to just enjoy this soap for the rest of their life, meaning there are people out there who buy one soap and stick with it until it's gone. This would be one of those soaps I could do that with. Now, I could also do that with the likes of Mitchell's Wool Fat. I find that it's not a super manly scent, it's just more like a fresh linen scent, but the texture on my face, and I just really like that one. I've got a jar of Sella up here that I could stick with that one too. A little bit less likely than this. This is a nice manly scent. The cherry almond of Sella might get old after a while. Also got Fine Accoutrements Santal Absolute up there too, in an Old Spice, vintage Old Spice mug, and that is an awesome sandalwood scent that I really, really like. And so I could definitely go with that one if I had to choose one soap for the rest of my days. So this shave has been very nice, and this third pass now is extra smooth. So if you want to get a blade to go far, you need to nail down some good technique. That's very important. Now I have a beard that's not super dense. I do have kind of wiry hair, but I think that part's kind of average. But I'd say maybe I have a 4 out of 10 in terms of beard density. But I've heard other guys who have taken blades to 100 and they have thick, bushy beards, and so that may or may not be too much of an impediment. But another key that I've found is to have a few razors with just the right geometry. And this Sheraton happens to be one of them. It's not, I was about to say find a few razors that are aggressive, but this may not fall in that list. It's just got the right geometry. Whatever that means, it just works, and it works well. Not a lot of residual slickness for this soap, and that may be because it's a little rich right now. I could thin it out a little bit with some water. So that means be careful with going back and touching up areas after you've shaved away the lather. Be very careful with soaps like that. Make sure that it's wet and slick. Some soaps are better about that than others. Some lathers you're just much better off one pass and then lather up one pass. Don't try to do any buffing or anything like that. It all depends on the way the soap was mixed and that kind of thing. So this scent, I'm liking the strength so far in this shave. It's a really clean green type of vetiver. It's not the dirty or dark vetiver that some of the other soaps take advantage of. I do like that as well. Probably like it a little bit better than this clean version, but it's very nice, very fresh. Since it's not heavy, I could easily see people choosing it more often in the spring and summer. I could see going into fall with it, but I actually don't have a problem any time of the year with it. And I added that other half teaspoon of water to the remaining lather, and I think I nailed it just right. Got tons left. So that 20-second load. And this is what I was talking about with the MdC just going quite far. I probably, if all things were equal and I accumulated the soap in the brush at an equal rate during those 20 seconds, then I'd say try a 10-second load. We might do that next time. But sometimes I think it takes a few seconds just to get everything started. And so I don't think it's a straight linear curve there regarding how quickly your soap gets on your brush. This is my easy area over here. I'm just going to do a little downward stroke with a slight tilt, slight slant to it. No irritation today. There were some tips that weren't cut all that well in my trouble zone. Now, here's my real trouble zone over here. So what I like to do, a little bit of stretching and then just buff and watch it. So if I see some hairs that are hanging out where they shouldn't, buff a little bit longer in that area. Change my angle. If I tilt my angle a little bit, roll it back that way, then it becomes more aggressive. It becomes more of a against the grain aspect to the angle. And as long as I'm in a good safe spot, I can do that sometimes. All right, I'm happy with that. Rinse time. I think I picked the right tub. It's an enjoyable scent that'll be especially great in the spring and summer. But I barely put a dent in the top of the soap puck, and that's just what happens with soaps that go a long ways. Very nice. Performance was excellent. Very, very, very good. Right on par with the top tier American artisans, in my opinion. When you mix it right, I think it's great. Yeah, you know, Noble Otter, Holy Cow, Barrister and Man, including the Reserve and the Excelsior base, Declaration Grooming, you know, all those big names. I think there's one that I'm forgetting that's one of the big players. But and the great thing is, I've got this little crappy soaps, good soaps, very good soaps, and then great soaps, and we've just got so many soaps that are in that very good and great soap zone that it doesn't matter where they really are, because the bottom line is you're shaving with a very good soap, enjoying yourself, and there's tons of inexpensive soaps in that zone as well. You don't have to go out and buy an expensive soap to just have a great shave. I'm really happy about that. A few hairs I could see some length on. So for a 103 use blade, very happy with that. That's kind of average for me, even when I have a young blade. So I'm very glad. So this is neat that the blade did so well today, because yesterday the shave was not all that great, as I mentioned earlier. And so it was clearly the geometry, the nature of that particular razor in relation to that blade. And the Sheraton has brought it back, and this little Nacet is going to keep on trucking. So let's we'll take him out. I don't know if I'll use him tomorrow. We'll set him over there lightly and gently to dry. Pat him once, and then I'll wipe out the insides here of this Sheraton. And a little quick razor tour for you. Kind of the 40s style handle, but it doesn't have the knurling right here on this little band here. It has a little bit of writing. Of course, the open comb. The rivets right here help you know the date. I like the fact that the doors close and just meet right there, flush, instead of having the rail exposed like most of the other twist to open Gillettes that will come later in later years. It's got a nice dense feel, a dense weight. The balance is about right there. I better, let's bring in the thing and see where the balance is, see if it's any different. Yeah, it's a little farther more toward the end and not the razor head. I like that as far as balance. And the thinness of the handle makes it very nimble regarding switching and moving around. Very nice. Just a nice piece with history and style and function all in one. And the geometry is just terrific. I don't think there are really too many razors out now with geometry like that. Maybe the Vetyvers are just surprisingly smooth. I think there's some other high-end razors out there, maybe some Wolfman that can do that as well. Just super smooth, yet really nice cutters. And I think I'm kind of happy with the banding that I put on this brush. It felt a little better. It was easier to move around instead of having it spliced so much that I couldn't really move around too much. It did shove my face just a little bit. So maybe instead of 2 bands, I can get an O-ring, so in effect it's 1 band, and so I can give myself a few extra millimeters of loft with this one. Neat experiment. And again, tons of lather that I've got. Feels excellent. Tiny bubbles, but tiny bubbles don't really mean bad lather. I just had a great shave. It was creamy, felt great. This feels wonderful in my hands. Slick and nice. It feels like a soap that's kind to your skin. It's not one of those more caustic ones, though I like those too. I have the luxury of being able to like those because I have oily skin. Very, very nice. All right. I talked about the soap. Scent strength was nice. I was happy. It was present during the shave. So even though it's a little bit on the low scale, I'd say 3 or 4 when I'm brushing it on. About the same when I'm rinsing because of the movement and things like that. If I'm just standing there, then it's lower. But in the shave, you don't often just stand there. So I'm happy with the scent strength. It's present. And that's what's important to me, at least. Talked about the razor and the brush. Very happy with that. So I think we're good. I'll pause you. Be back. A little public service announcement for you there. At the bottom, in case you didn't know, at the bottom of all these hairs, inside is a glue ball. And even if you yank the knot out, move it to another handle, the glue ball will stay there holding all the hairs together. That's the way it's supposed to be. You'll have another adhesive that's on the bottom of that glue ball that will affix it to the handle. But that glue ball there is very important, obviously, to keep all the hairs together. Sometimes, if you can hurt the glue ball by heat cycling. If it goes from room temperature and you drop it in a sink of hot water as a part of your prep, then that glue ball will start to expand. And then during the shave, all that, it'll be done, and then you dry it off and it'll start to contract. So if you do that every day, that expanding and contracting can then loosen the glue ball, deteriorate it, and you might start having hairs that start to fall out. And that's applicable for probably for the synthetic knots as well, but definitely for the boar and the badger hairs. And so be careful with your brushes and hot water. And that's why I soak mine in cold or warm, usually just in cold. And I only soak the bristle part, not the handle part. I don't let that root ball get down in the water. And so that's a little tip to help you keep your brushes from shedding as much, if at all. and keep them lasting nice and long time so that you can enjoy. There we go. This is shared very little, maybe one hair every 3 shaves, and that's just fine for a fairly new knot. Time to go ahead and throw on the post shave, and I am feeling like Flying Hide tonight from Noble Otter. It does have some kind of menthol ingredient like panenthol or something like that. It is an alcohol splash, but it also has witch hazel and aloe juice to help out and not be quite so nasty on your skin and stuff. So we'll try this guy out. I think I've used it before. Let's see if the menthol is too strong for me, or the whatever cooling agent it is. I really like the scent though, you know, leather, stuff like that. All right, so there we go. I think we're done. Very good shave. It restored my faith and knowledge that the Nacet is nowhere near done. Enjoyable. Talked about all the pieces already and whether I liked or didn't like them. So I hope this was good for you. Normally the menthol would kick in by now, so I think this is at a rate, at a level that I'm happy with. This cooling agent in here, so very nice because I do love the scent. So this is Sugar Daddy Shaves. I'm tired. You take care. Good night.